Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another video. Today's video is going to be about the gameplay update, the patch 7.31b. They just released this last night, and it's just basically a small tweak to the current patch. We're going to go through all the little changes here, and I'm going to explain basically why I think they made these changes. So let's just jump into it really quick. The first one, general changes, mana cost reduction now stacks diminishingly. So before it stacked additively, so pretty much what was happening was, this is a nerf directly to Storm and a few other heroes, but pretty much mainly Storm, is that you could buy all the null talismans that now have mana cost reduction and the arcane blink, and everything would stack additively. It would all stack together. So at 25 minutes, when the effects doubled on the null talismans, basically Storm could zip from his base to the other side of the base at 25 minutes with only like 10k farm. You can kind of do that with Storm, or you used to be able to do that with Storm with like Bloodstone and other things and a lot of farm, and it's like, you know, an hour into the game and you could zip the entire way across the map with like regen from Fountain. But now it was very, very easy to do that with a very few items, and so that was kind of a problem. So instead of just having all those things stack additively, it's stacking diminishingly, so it's basically diminishing returns, so you don't get as much mana cost reduction. So all those kinds of things, like those builds to stack all that stuff together, is just not as good. It's not as OP. It could still kind of work, but not nearly as well as it did. So that's honestly the main change, probably to Storm. And actually in the background, there was a couple things that were changed that aren't even mentioned here. One, the new hero, Primal Beast, was actually buffed slightly. Just some buffs on his stats, I think like a couple days after the patch. And then also, we'll get to Batrider in a second, but Batrider was like nerfed kind of in a fix way. They didn't even really mention it, but it was like a fix to the game. But I'll mention that when we get to Batrider. But this is one that was obviously just a Storm nerf, but some other things I saw, like Rubik's getting it and stuff like that too. Next is the item changes. So these two actually are kind of weird to me. Like Boots of Bearing, they nerfed it slightly with the unslowable duration. I don't really know why they did that. I know some people were saying people bought it on Meepo, and some other heroes were buying it, and it was pretty good. And I mean, I know it was pretty good, but was it really that good? I think people were just buying it to try it out, and I'm not necessarily sure that it's that great for the price. I mean, it is good. It's supposed to be good, but it's a very expensive boot. So I just don't know that needed to happen, but maybe there's some statistics in the background that I'm not aware of that caused this to be the case, or some broken build that I actually didn't know about. But I just don't think this was like the most broken thing. And like, if to nerf it in one way, sure, but to like just make the unslowable duration a little lower, I don't really know that that's the biggest of deals. In terms of like why it was that really that overpowered, I don't think so. But in any case, that's Boots of Bearing. Orchid of Malevolence, I think this item was just really cost effective, really cheap. You could get it very early. I was trying it on Slark. I think a lot of other heroes that usually like to buy Orchid or need regen early, mana regen early. I even saw it on like CK. I saw it on obviously the normal heroes like Storm and all these kinds of things. And I think it was pretty good. I actually don't think it was as good as some people thought. I tried it on Slark, and you didn't get any damage. I think it just wasn't as good as some people think, because you didn't actually get it as quickly as you may have thought you would have gotten it. It wasn't actually that much cheaper, just because of the 1,000 gold for the knuckles that you had to get, and then the 1,400 gold for the sword. I think it's the broadsword or whatever. It's just actually kind of a lot. It takes a little bit to get it. You're not getting it like early laning stage, or not early, but you're not getting it in the laning stage. You're getting it like 11, 12 minutes, unless you're like dominating the lane. So I think it was good. I don't know that it needed nerf, but I think it was being picked up a lot more. So it makes sense that they just kind of made it a little bit worse. And I just don't think actually now it's that good, just because of the nerf, because it's like almost the same price as it was before, actually. So these two, I don't necessarily think these were necessary nerfs, but you know, they happened, and I think they were pretty good items. Orchid is pretty good. It was being picked up a lot more, so it makes sense why they decided to do that. Neutral item changes, I have no idea why this was changed. I don't really think this matters. I don't think it's important. It literally doesn't mean anything. So yeah, I don't think this should matter at all, and I don't know why they even decided to change it. There must be some statistical reason, but it just seems kind of pointless. Batrider. So Batrider was changed because he was actually like nerfed in the background. So what happened before with the Shard is that Shard applied Sticky Napalm on attack. You could actually buy a Manta, and your Manta illusions, basically, it would work with that. So they would apply Sticky Napalm on attack. And with the Shard, with the fact that you could attack during Flaming Lasso, you could literally lasso people, Manta, and if you had like a Moon Shard or any attack speed item, even like Mask of Madness, you could just like literally insta-kill anybody in the entire game, even if they had like 4k HP. It was ridiculous. So they stopped the Shard from working with illusions. The illusions no longer applied Sticky Napalm. That was fixed in the first day or two. And now they're just kind of changing Batrider overall because he was still strong even despite that nerf. So basically they increased the move speed to make up for some of these other things, which is that the Shard Sticky Napalm now has a 50% chance of applying on attack. So they nerfed that a lot. So it's basically happening half as much, which isn't that great. I think that maybe if they just made it like this, but then it worked on illusions, that would be balanced. I don't know why they're just like, I mean, Batrider was broken, but I think that the broken part of him with the Mant and everything, I mean, this still was good, but I don't know that this needed to change it that much. But in any case, I mean, they decided to nerf that. They also decided to the mana cost decreased on Flaming Lasso, so a buff there overall, and then the move speed talent reduced on 15, which is interesting. But overall, if you get this, now he has more movement speed overall, because it's a 5 here, movement speed decrease here, but a 10 movement speed increase right there. So I don't know. It's just kind of weird because they like buffed him here, slight nerf to the talent and nerf to the shard, which is just, I always find it very annoying and very interesting. And honestly, in the last 6 months, this has been happening over and over and over again. And it kind of makes me feel like a human is not patching the game, like it's some kind of AI or something, or that whoever patches the game is not like playing the game. Is that it's very annoying to me. It's so weird when they like buff the hero and then they also nerf it. Like they're nerfing it, this is what they want to do, but then to like weirdly make up for it, they buff it in other ways. And it just seems so odd. Like just nerf the hero. Like the hero's too good, just nerf it. It's not a big deal. Like this doesn't 25 mana, like that doesn't matter. That doesn't really mean anything. I mean it does, but it's not like why? Just nerf the hero. If he's too powerful, just nerf it. Whatever. Just do this. You don't need to increase his movement speed. Like why would you do that? That's actually significant. 10 extra movement speed, that's pretty significant early on. Like why are you buffing him if, you want him to be nerfed? I don't know. It's just a gripe I have. So, but Batrider overall nerfed just because the shard is now nerfed, and that was really what was making him good. But obviously more movement speed is always good on this hero. Huskar, another hero that pretty much everyone could predict was going to be broken. I mean, this hero was absolutely insane. This hero used to be broken when it had its magic resistance on his passive, and then they took that away, and they changed the hero a little bit, and then they gave him back magic resistance. I think everyone reading the patch could have predicted that this hero was going to be broken. So it was broken. It had like one of the best win rate gains in the game, and so they're just nerfing it overall. Basically, the agility gain, so his agility is just reduced overall, just less to start, and then less gain every level. Inner fire cooldown increased. So early on, this spell is not as good in like the laning stage and those kinds of things to disarm people. And then level 15 talent, +5 burning spear DPS reduced to +4. So this is kind of how I like balance patches to be, how I like you to try to balance a hero. If you think Huskar is broken, just nerf him overall. Just like these 3 nerfs, pretty good. Slight nerfs, not a big deal, but it just makes the hero a little less powerful. It just doesn't make him as good. And I think he was actually being played as carry a lot, including mid, like in addition to mid, which means that, he's pretty broken if he can also play carry. So I also saw Huskars live on like literally 100 HP, like nobody could kill them. It was kind of insane. But so that's Huskar. He definitely needed a nerf. Lina, I tried the Lina. I wasn't sure if the new Lina was going to be better or worse, because in the laning stage, basically, you can get stacks a lot easier because you can just use one ability. It hits 4 creeps and a hero. You have way more stacks with that one ability, and you can get full stacks with 2 abilities. The problem is, I played this hero like 3-4 times, is that there's many times in the game that you're not going to have creeps around or things around to keep your stacks up, and then you're like, let's say you buy Shadowblade or something, you're going to try to gank. Well, if you don't have all of your stacks up, basically, when you go to try to gank and you lose your stacks, there's nothing you can do, because unless somebody is standing in a creep wave or in a creep camp, there's like, you're just not going to kill them, because you can, right click them or light strike array from fog. You can use your Dragon Slave and your Laguna Blade, but if it's one hero, that's only 3 stacks. So that's only like basically half of the stacks that you would have normally gotten if you're trying to gank somebody, because the whole point of the hero in the past was you use all 3 abilities, you get your full stacks, you kill people with Shadowblade, those kinds of things. So that kind of play with, mid Lina, core Lina, where you're running around and you're ganking, but not only that, but you're doing a lot of damage in team fights, it just doesn't work anymore. Even if you're sieging high ground, like let's say you're trying to take a tower, well, you're going to use your ability on the creeps to clear the creeps, and then you keep your stacks up because you came from the jungle. Well, your stack duration is only 15 seconds, and now the creeps around you that spawn in that lane don't spawn for another 30 seconds. Or at least don't get to where they are, where you are in the lane at the tower for 30 seconds. So basically, you have 15 seconds of right-clicking the tower, and then you either have to, like, for, the last 3 seconds, you have to run to the jungle really quick, cast an ability, and then come back. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't work with the hero. I understand that they wanted to, like, stop the weird awkwardness, maybe, of casting abilities in base and stuff like that, but actually it just makes the hero even more awkward now, because you're not casting abilities randomly, when you don't see anybody. You're literally running from creep wave or from tower to like jungle, just like frantically to try to cast an ability on creeps in the jungle to run back to the tower to keep hitting it. It just makes no sense. It's stupid, it's clunky, it makes the hero completely terrible and broken. Like, the laning stage is a little bit better, but other than that, after you get out of the lane, this hero's absolutely unplayable, literally unplayable, and terrible right now. So, in any case, with that diatribe out of the way, with that complete rant, because I was playing Lina a lot, and I really liked her in the last patch. Even though she had a bad win rate, she was like bottom 20 win rates. She was pretty strong. Now, she's absolutely terrible. I think they're going to have to revert this change because it's a terrible, terrible change. The only way to make this change work is to have the duration of her passive last for 30 seconds. You just have to make it last for 30 seconds. But anyway, her agility growth was increased. Her intelligence growth was increased, her light striker rate damage was increased, and her Laguna Blade mana cost was reduced. So buffs all around because this hero's terrible. I don't think this matters. None of these things matter. Maybe for support Lina, it could like make her a little bit better, but so maybe that will be viable. But right now as a core, this hero's just in the trash can, and it will never come back until they change something about the passive. They need to make it, if they want to keep it the way it is, they need to make the duration longer, like 30 seconds, 35 seconds, so that you can keep it up on every creep wave. That's just how it has to be. Otherwise, it's going to be even more awkward than what it was before. So that's Lina. Next, we're going to go to Lone Druid. Lone Druid, I predicted, was going to be very, very strong in this patch, and I think that kind of came to fruition. This hero, with the shared armor and all the other small tweaks and small buffs, but especially the shared armor, this hero scales better. So now this hero takes towers, lanes really well. It's just really good early, and then scales even better into the late game, is unkillable with his ult, etc. So they just needed to nerf this hero overall. So Spirit Link attack bonus decreased overall, and the shared armor reduced overall as well as the talent here. Level 15 talent set minus 10 Savage Roar cooldown decreased to minus 8 seconds. So just 3 small nerfs. I think the nerf of the armor is like kind of the biggest one. Obviously, there's the attack speed is important too. It just made the hero overall worse, because I think right now the hero is super broken. I think the hero was already like unkillable. The real problem was if you didn't end the game quickly, your bear just melted late game. But with this shared armor, it was just really good now. It was like very hard to bring down the bear. You were just kind of this unkillable beast that did insane damage and took towers super quickly. So that's why this hero needed a nerf. We'll see if it's relevant. I'll be interested to see if, like, come, the new DPC season, if people are picking up Lone Druid, if he's still good enough now. But yeah, that's Lone Druid. Next, we're going to go to Lycan. Lycan is basically nerfed. The Summon Wolves is just nerfed. The damage on the Wolves and the shard Wolf damage reduced. So I'm not sure why this happened. I think maybe this has something to do with, this probably has something to do with the stats. When they changed like how damage types work in the last patch, or just like kind of clarified everything and changed the way the coding works or whatever. I think maybe they nerfed the treants from Nature's Prophet. So I don't know how much they changed the wolves. I kind of forget, but I think this is maybe just like a statistical thing. They think that wolves were doing too much damage. Which I guess makes sense, but I don't think Lycan was really that good. I think he was good. He definitely is, but I don't think it's like, oh, the Summon Wolves are so broken. So it's just an interesting patch. I think this is like an AI statistical kind of thing that they did. Next, we'll go with Meepo. Meepo had one of the most, if not the most, improvement, or he improved the most on his win rate after the patch dropped. I didn't think there was enough to make him better, but I think he's one of those heroes that, like, basically, he's always on the verge of either always terrible or always good. And he's always on the verge of one buff away from being like overpowered and just taking over games. Because if this hero can snowball well enough to just like dominate the game, and you kind of buff him to the point where he pushes past that tipping point, he's going to just destroy games, be very, very good. Especially with with players that know how to play the hero. So he was really, really good. All those small buffs, all the different things combined just made him overpowered. And now they had to nerf him a little bit. So they just nerfed his agility growth and his talent here. I actually don't think these nerfs are that big. They're really not that big of a deal, but just small ones to see if it makes the hero's win rate go down a little bit. I think it's still going to be relevant, though. I think it's still kind of overpowered, because this is a very, very minor nerf, I think. Next, we're going to have Morphling. So they changed Morphling Ags and some things with Morph. So I think now they just kind of wanted to buff Morph slightly because the Ags was different. I don't really know that this was necessary, but hey, whatever. It's just a small Morphling buff. Just base move speed increased, and the turn rate is improved. I think Morph, I'm not sure if he was like that much worse, but just with some of the changes, I guess they statistically thought this hero needed buffed, which is interesting. I think Morph's like turn rate and move speed were pretty bad comparatively to other heroes, so it kind of makes sense that they wanted to do that. Again, another statistical thing, kind of like the Lycan Wolves, I think that they needed to do. So Naga, they changed Naga because I think in the last patch, yeah, they basically made it so the Riptide happens every 6 attacks, but it was kind of weird. I think it like broke the hero and made it not very good because it was every 6 attacks from like Naga, but then also her illusion. So each illusion had to attack 6 times before Riptide happened, I believe, so it just like never happened, kind of. But now it says the hit threshold increased from 5 to 6, or it was 5 times, sorry, not 6 times, but now it's 6 times. And now it triggers on Naga and all of her illusions every 6 attacks from Naga and her illusions combined. So basically this means that like every time you attack 6 times between all of your different units, now that's when Riptide will proc. But it would only damage the enemy 1 time for every time that happens. So it was in the past, it was really weird. It would be like, you spawn illusions, they don't cast Riptide by like proccing it, and then they all proc it at the same time, which means they're like not doing a lot of damage, over time, but then they're doing a ton of damage at once. It was really, really weird. So now it's just kind of more random. It happens more randomly, or not necessarily randomly, but it happens more like frequently, and it's not as much like burst damage in one instance. So they decrease the damage overall because now it will be happening probably a lot more over time. So that's pretty much, it was kind of like a nerf, but kind of a buff. I don't know, it's like weird. I think it was mainly that the hero was bursting enemies down, but then at the same time, if somebody could clear your illusions quickly, you pretty much had no damage. So it's just like one of these all or nothing kind of things, which is interesting. So just kind of slight changes here to the way that Riptide works, because it was a little bit broken, a little bit weird with the way they did it last time. But they actually increased the damage overall here on the talent. But so like at the end of the day, you can still have more damage than was original, but obviously that was 90 damage versus 85. So it's just slight nerfs overall, slight changes. Next we'll see Puck. So I think Puck is better in some ways because of the items, because of like the brooch that they added and the change to Ethereal Blade, but I think the change of the Ags was not very good. Putting Ags at the 25 talent and the new Ags is absolutely garbage, I think. It's just terrible. Why would you ever buy it? It's absolute trash. So they just basically buffed Puck. Mana regen, turn rate, and the max distance for Waning Rift increased. So all little buffs, I think, because Puck was just kind of obliterated by some of the things of the patch, especially with the Ags. It just doesn't feel as good of a hero. So I think that's kind of why they decided to buff Puck here. But I think Puck might actually come to be a very, very good mid laner this patch. I think he's kind of like a sleeping giant because of the way the new items work. So next we look at Pudge. So originally in my video, and I think when most people saw it, they thought that Pudge was absolutely terrible, and he kind of is. He's still terrible. He's still not as good. I think his win rate decreased. So, that is pretty bad. But the way that Flesh Heap works now is actually not what I thought it was. Basically, you can cast it, and any kind of like magic damage that happens like in a very consistent period, like every 0.1 seconds or whatever, Pudge blocks pretty much all of that damage. So, for instance, a good example is Juggernaut, Blade Fury, basically when he's spinning, or Bloodseeker Ultimate. Basically, you can just pop Flesh Heap and you take almost 0 damage. So with like Bloodseeker Ultimate, he can cast Ultimate on you. You just pop Flesh Heap if it's maxed out, and you can literally just run away and take no damage. So that's very interesting because of the way the damage block works, and it's like all different sources of damage. You can kind of take 0 damage from damage over time spells, from magic damage spells like that, or even pure damage spells like the Bloodseeker one. So I think that's actually kind of strong. So you take no damage from Rot during it. You take no damage from other magic spells. It can be a pretty powerful ability. So we'll see how that works out in the end. But overall, I think he still was kind of worse because they took away some of the things that make the hero good, which is the magic resistance, because this hero kind of needs magic resistance. So in any case, they did buff it. Flesh Heap was dispellable, which pretty much it shouldn't have been, which is weird that it was. The cooldown decreased, so you can use it more often, especially early on. So it incentivizes people to play this hero maybe as an offlane hero and get Flesh Heap early. the duration was rescaled. So early on it's not as good, but later on it's better. So you have 8 seconds of pretty much invulnerability in some ways to a lot of spells, which is pretty cool. And then the mana cost decreased early on. So even though it doesn't last as long, you can kind of spam it more in the lane, which is interesting because the cooldown is less, the mana cost is less. So it's something that you can kind of use in the laning stage. So I think they're trying to make off-lane Pudge a little bit better in general, or even 4 Pudge can be better too, but just getting like a flesh heap point early is valuable. And then the small change to the talent, where the 25 talent was plus 1.5 flesh heap stack strength replaced with 1.6x flesh heap stack strength and damage block bonuses. So 1.6 times at 25. I don't know how relevant that is, but it's better, but I just don't know how relevant that is at 25. So yeah, that's Pudge. I think he's better now than he was before. At least in the last patch when they kind of nerfed him or changed him. But I actually think this flesh heap is a little bit underestimated. I think it's actually a little bit better than people think, where I thought it was absolute trash, but now I think it's pretty decent. All right, so moving on to Riki. Riki was pretty much broken now because, like as a carry or even any position, because you can just get Diffusal Blade so quickly because it's so much cheaper, and this hero absolutely stomps with that item. So they're just going to nerf Riki overall. Basically, base movement speed reduced, mana cost on Blink Strike was increased later on. And Sleeping Dart, Shard Sleep duration reduced from 4 seconds to 3 seconds. So basically just nerfs overall for the hero. I still think the hero can be very strong as a carry. Just has a little bit more mana issues and isn't as fast running after people, etc. But just getting this Diffusal Blade and scaling is so good on this hero. I think this hero is like really, really good right now because of that Diffusal change. So that's Riki. Storm Spirit, because of the overall nerf at the top there, I think they're just kind of changing Storm because of how good Orchid is right now and how much it just destroys this hero and how quickly you can get it. They obviously did nerf that, but I think Storm's kind of like, now that they made his, null build unusable, I think this hero is really bad. So they decided to reduce the cooldown when Electric Vortex, because basically he no longer can get Bloodstone. He can get Orchid, but he gets countered by Orchid if somebody else buys it. I just don't think this hero is very good right now because he doesn't have items that he really loves to build. He doesn't really, now with the mana loss reduction, like not stacking, it's just not as good for the hero. It's very hard to get enough mana on the hero without Bloodstone and those kinds of things. So I don't think Storm's very good, so it makes sense that they buffed him there. So Techies, the new Techies. I think Techies is decent, okay. I think that obviously it like decreased in its win rate, but people were just figuring out how to play it. The same thing happened with the new hero, and then I think the new hero was like 37% win rate and then jumped up to like 45 in like a couple days. So this is just going to happen with newish heroes, but they are buffing it slightly. So basically the blast off, I think the blast off was tuned to be able to kill yourself early in the game, but now you can't do that anymore. So I think they're just changing it overall. So basically now the self damage is based on your current HP rather than max HP. So the lower HP you are, the less damage you're doing to yourself. Self damage decreased over here overall through the percentage that is lower later on. So it actually starts at a percentage that was the max. So the start percentage now was as low as it was when it was maxed out, and now it goes down to 20%, which is a big improvement. Enemy damage decreased, so early on it's not as good, but later on it's pretty good, so it's still a great team fight ability in that way. So you can use it a lot more. And then cooldown decreased overall, especially early. So even though it's doing less damage, you can use it a little bit more often, but still at the max level, you can use it as the same amount. So I think it just makes it so this ability is a little bit better in team fights. You're not killing yourself as much, and you're doing the same amount of damage, which is important. Because basically what would happen is, you seemed like, yeah, you could use this in lane, you could use this sometimes. When you use this in team fights, you're putting yourself in a vulnerable position, and you take so much damage, which was good before if you could suicide, but now you can't. So the good change to buff that a little bit. Sticky Bomb Explosion now slows enemies within the explosion radius. So it's not just like when it sticks on somebody, but now it slows people even more. So it's even more of a spell that is good for team fighting, is good for, having those other effects. I think it was this is a pretty good ability. I think people thought it was really easy to hit, and now I'm seeing like people be able to dodge it more. So now it just gives it a little bit extra, like, okay, you're slowed, you take damage, but then, people shouldn't be around you either, because they're also going to take some slow when it explodes. So just an interesting change. I think that's pretty good. And then reactive taser disarm duration rescaled from 3 to a little less early on and a little more later, so just making it kind of more valuable to put points in, I think, as well. I don't think it changes it that much. I mean, 0.3 seconds is not a huge deal, but it just makes it so that it's not like 1 point and you just keep 1 point in it. So I think that's kind of why they changed that, because everyone is putting 1 point in it and that's it. And then the talent, level 20 talent, plus 100 sticky bomb damage, replaced with 125 sticky bomb damage latch explosion radius. So it just makes the it's kind of a level 20 talent, which is interesting, but it just makes it easier to hit sticky bombs and like slow people, which I don't know that that's that good. I feel like the damage might be better, but it just makes it easier to hit. I don't know that you necessarily need that. But Techies overall buffed. We'll see how it works. It'll be interesting to see if Techies becomes like a 4 or 5 position in pros, or if he's even that good now. But I kind of can't wait to see how pros deal with this hero, because I see a lot of people like Thompson and stuff practicing it, but you know, the real determination is, will it be used in pro games and competitive games? So Terrorblade here, cooldown reduced on Metamorphosis, radius increased on Reflection, illusion damage taken reduced. I don't necessarily know why Terrorblade needed this change, and to be buffed here. I think that he was slightly buffed in the last patch as well, but I think there was this, I think it was one of those where he was like buffed and nerfed. I can't exactly remember. I know they've changed some things about how one of the Agzir shard works. I can't remember, but in any case, just some small stuff that they changed on him. I don't think it was huge changes. Maybe I'm forgetting, but basically, I guess he was pretty bad. I guess he was in a bad place. I don't really know why. I'm not really sure. This must be a statistical thing that I'm unaware of. Maybe somebody in the comments, somebody watching, can tell me why they needed to buff Terrorblade so much. I think in the last patch of competitive, 2 patches ago, I guess you would say, he was pretty good, and I don't think they nerfed him that hard, so I just don't really understand why they're buffing him a bunch. Maybe they want to see him more. I don't know. But anyway, that's Terrorblade. Next, we have Tiny. So Tiny was apparently broken. He was pretty good according to win rates. In my experience with Tiny, he actually wasn't that great. I played against him and with him as a carry a bunch, and he lost like every game. I think people were just like trying to play him and just failing. Or maybe at my level, he's like not as good, but lower levels, he's better because he just bursts people down. Basically, what would happen is, I think the way that right-click Tiny was happening at TI, it's not as much that. It's more that you can run in with Shadowblade, hit people, and burst them down full to 0. You can like burst everybody down with the way that this hero works. So they decided to nerf it overall because the win rate was really good. I mean, that really determines, how good the hero is. And pretty much the bonus armor reduced here for grow, and then tree bonus damage decreased early on, and then level 15 talent decreased plus 50% grow bonus damage with tree to plus 40%. It's just nerfs overall, but I actually think this hero doesn't necessarily need to be carry. I think it can be more mid or 4, because I think the real thing that this hero does now is the straight up right click damage to buildings and everything isn't as good, but it's the burst damage. I think you can still get that burst damage even from 4 position, even from mid. So I think you should look to see Tiny in the future be like a 4 position or a mid more than a carry, even though people were playing at carry recently. Especially with the shard now, you can get the shard of 15 minutes. I don't see why you can't just like burst people down and get the shard with like a 4 position or mid. In any case, Undying, zombie damage reduced. I don't necessarily know why this happened. This might be like a Wolves thing. I know that Undying did get like a huge win rate increase. That probably has to do with the way that like the attack damage works from everything they changed. Same thing with the Wolves before, and I think that's the main reason. So they just decreased that to make that more reasonable. And then Zeus, I think Zeus plummeted win rate. That could just be because people are getting used to this hero, but basically small buffs here now. Heavenly Jump deals damage, deals 20, 50, 75, and 100 damage, and now grants vision before applying the slow and damage, which is just a small like quality of life change for the ability. I think the hero just got a lot worse in the way that it was used. I think people were trying to get used to playing it. The weird thing was the shard actually almost allowed you to go right click Zeus, which is something interesting, but it's not the best, but it did allow you that because you proc the old passive ability on right clicks as well, which is something interesting. I don't know how viable that really is, but we'll see how Zeus works in the future. I just think that Zeus doesn't do as much damage as he used to because that passive did so much damage. So now Zeus isn't doing damage, he just has this escape ability that's kind of situational that does, it just seems weird. I don't know why they did this to Zeus. They're trying to make him more relevant, but I just think the design of the hero, you're never going to get him out of the place that he is. I don't think. I mean, we'll see how this works, but I don't think it's going to change a lot about the hero or make him more like competitively viable or make him like a support or anything. It's just not how the hero functions or is designed. But he was pretty bad, so it makes sense that they buffed him. So that is the gameplay update. That's the patch 7.31b. Let me know if I missed something, if I like didn't understand things. There's a couple things like Terrorblade that I wasn't sure about. Lycan Wolves, I wasn't really sure about. I went on a rant about Lina, so I knew about that. Boots of Bearing, I knew it was kind of good, but I didn't know it was like broken enough to need, at least this part of it was broken enough to need that nerf. But in any case, those are the changes. I think overall decent changes. It looks like whoever made this patch kind of understood the meta or what was happening, so that's good. But yeah, those are the changes there. Pretty much, I think, nerfs overall to really broken heroes, buffs to heroes that got like completely nerfed, like Lina, Pudge, Techies, kind of these heroes, Zeus, these heroes that were terrible. Those are pretty much the ones. And then otherwise, it's just nerfs the things that were broken. So in any case, that's the patch. That's the update. Hope everybody's having fun with the patch. I am. I know it's pretty good. I know people were complaining, oh, it's not big enough. I think it's pretty cool. It's pretty big. It's pretty decent. I'm having exciting, new, fun games. Pretty good time. So anyways, I hope everybody liked the video. As always, like, comment, subscribe, all those kinds of things. Join the Patreon to support me or to get coaching. Join the Discord to request replay reviews and join the community there, as always. And then go to my Twitch page and subscribe to see my streams every Friday and other times when I do, pubs and those kinds of things, and probably stream other games in the future as well. So, as always, guys, thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.